month, more people lost their jobs than got jobs. That was a legitimate dip, which was exacerbated by kind of a freeze up in the banking industry, which made it difficult for businesses to get loans and expand and even meet payroll. A lot of businesses shut down, a lot of people lost their jobs. Okay, now we've had almost 80 months in a row where more jobs have been found than given up. That's clearly not a blip. I mean, that's a massive, massive trend as we've watched the unemployment rate drop from above 10% to now close to 4.5%. So, I mean, market economies go in cycles. Right now, we're in a cycle that now has very low unemployment.
So we're sort of on that low end of the cycle, right?
Well, we're on the low end of the cycle for unemployment. And I think it's kind of odd because during all of presidential politics, what we heard from both parties was, we need to create jobs, we need to create jobs, but we're almost at full employment. It's not like we need to create jobs. So why isn't our economy considered completely recovered and strong? Why isn't everybody happy? Because the jobs don't pay as much as they used to pay. So really, the challenge for our economy is not creating jobs. The problem for our economy and the people working in our economy is that while the cost of living continues to rise, albeit at a low rate, the amount of money that people are being paid is stagnant. In real terms, wages are lower now than they were 10 years ago, and certainly lower than they were 40 years ago in some sectors like manufacturing and the minimum wage and things like that.
And so that's why a lot of people aren't feeling as if we've had that big recovery that the numbers would seemingly indicate, right?
No, I mean, traditionally people say that when businesses expand, they'll hire more labor. But since all the workers are hired, effectively what they're willing to do is give people more hours. The argument is, if you get rid of minimum wage, if you get rid of overtime laws, if you get rid of OSHA, if you get rid of all the constraints on hiring, we can hire you more. What that really means is that if you're willing to work for $5 an hour, we'll give you 80 hours a week. If you insist on being paid $8 an hour, we can only give you 50 hours a week. Now, both of those jobs would pay $400 a week, but for one of them, the worker would have to work a lot more hours. And effectively, the American population, decade after decade, is earning the same amount of money for working many more hours. In fact, the average two-adult family in this country works 84 hours a week. 40 years ago, it was 38 hours a week. The hours are going up, but the net pay is not really going up after adjusting for inflation. So I think that it's important to talk about unemployment, but having a job is only part of the picture. How much you can pay is part of the picture. Now, the people who are suggesting that by lowering the costs of industry to hire workers, that's in the benefit of workers, are kind of distracting us from what their policy proposals are. All of those policy proposals to make it less expensive to hire labor result in laborers making less money. So the solution to our problems is not create more jobs, but get wages up. And currently, the administration that's about to come in has all these plans that would result in wages going down even further. Continuing to bust up unions, not raise minimum wage, in fact, get rid of minimum wage. In some states, they're challenging the validity of child labor laws.
See how that would work, right? And so, you know, another thing I guess I've been hearing is that there's like a skills gap, if you will. Have you been hearing anything about that? Like the types of jobs that people had been qualified before, they're not necessarily qualified for what's open?
Yeah, I would say that the higher paying jobs are the ones that require specialized skills. Because Americans work more hours and because governments are funding education, particularly higher education at lower levels, opportunities for people to get the training that they need are lower. And therefore, we've got people entering the workforce who are capable of running a cash register and doing, light factory work. And of course, the service industry can take all comers. But, the type of specialized skilled jobs, construction, plumbing, electrical work, mechanics, things like that, those kinds of jobs actually do pay $20, $30, $40 an hour. There's also the requirement that you get drug tested, which in a deregulated marijuana environment doesn't change the drug testing requirements. And so there's less and less people that are qualified to fill those jobs. And in parts of the country where education has been starved the most, corporations are not building facilities or industries that require high-trained workers because there is that gap. The high-trained workers may not be there. And I think that Wisconsin is suffering a little bit from that because we've cut the amount of money that we spend on both K-12 education and college education. The fact that our infrastructure, like we don't have commuter rail that would move corporate executives smoothly between Chicago, the Twin Cities, and Madison. The fact that you can't get a cell phone signal or an internet signal if you're outside of a major urban area, all of these things work as a barrier to whether a high-tech modern corporation wants to locate here. And if you just want to look at the contrast, look at what Minnesota has been able to do by investing in infrastructure, education, and the economy in Minnesota not only has the same low unemployment rate, but wages on average are going up and up and up.
And so it's not just I'm trying to think of the term here, but it's not just necessarily a numbers game with that unemployment number, like you were saying. It also has to do with wages, right?
Yeah, you can't just look at one economic indicator in isolation from all others. I'm sure in a slave economy they've got 0% unemployment. It doesn't mean that you want to be part of that economy.
Let's see. Let's see if I can get questions here. What would you say to somebody who may be feeling left out of this economy right now, even though seeing those numbers? What would you say to them as they try to make do with what they have and try to find a job that pays decently, find a job period?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that anyone is left out of an economy. The question becomes, what is the opportunity cost of your time? Are you willing to stand behind a counter and charge people for coffee for $8.50 an hour when you've got work that needs to be done at home? You've got children or parents that need to be taken care of. You could be building your own house, you can be starting your own business. And so people can use other things to do with their time. I don't believe people are left out of the economy simply because they can't find a job. Because when unemployment rate is 4.5%, that's an indication that it's hard to find people to fill jobs. But it's the menial jobs that pay the least that are the ones that people don't want to take. For instance, the people that you referred to before as are just not looking. They're defined as either structurally unemployed or discouraged workers because they're no longer looking for a job. It doesn't mean they can't get a job. It means that they're not going to take a job that pays minimum wage. And so they used to make $40,000 a year, and now they're no longer in the workforce. The workforce participation rate, I think it's 62%, which is kind of an all-time low for the last 15 years. I do think that reflects the decision made by a lot of people that wages are too low to justify even going to work because you have to give up the other things. But what if you have children and you have to pay for childcare? You lose if you go to work. And so those people don't go to work, but we don't call them unemployed. So there's a lot of context to the unemployment statistic.
So that workforce participation rate, that's actually, you said, so that's actually low, as low as it's ever been, right, you said, or something
Yeah,
like that?
it's low.
Yeah.
Not lower than it's ever been. It's just in the last 15 years it's the lowest it's been. But you have to understand that there's also a lot of people that are my age, you know, late in their 50s, because of structural changes in the economy, the job that paid so well for so long has gone away. And now you're trying to make a decision. Are you ready to retire? Or are you going to start over in another industry at a severely reduced wage? If you make the decision to retire, you're not called unemployed. And the participation rate drops because of that. Now, is that necessarily a horrible thing? Maybe for that person it turns out to be a good choice. That after all these years they finally get to live their life, you know, without having to go to work every day. But their decision to not go to work is probably based more on the lousy wage that they've been offered than anything else. So I'll repeat, the real problem with the labor market and with jobs today is not that people can't find a job, it's that they can't find a job that pays them what they're willing to work for. And the solutions that I'm hearing from the incoming administration would result in even lower pay for workers, eliminating mandatory overtime, eliminating the minimum wage, you know, things like that.
Jim, you got anything? Anything that you'd like to add on top of that?
Nope, I got it all.
Alrighty, let's get a shot of this top shot here. So yeah, we talked to somebody at unemployment center who had sort of a similar story to what I think what you were mentioning. He used to be an electrician, and he's in his 50s, and he's a veteran, and he doesn't want to go and work those minimum wage, you know, customer service type jobs, service industry type jobs. And he's trying to find work in his field, but he's having trouble doing that and having trouble doing it through the union, because obviously there aren't as many union jobs, union electrician jobs, because of right to work and whatnot. And so he sort of dovetails with what you're saying. So he's sort of not, he's sort of feeling left behind in that sense, but yeah, not finding stuff that pays like you used to get potentially.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of hardworking people out there that are working 2, 3 jobs in order to maintain the same lifestyle that their parents maintained with 1 job. That's the real issue with standard of living in our country. It's not that people can't find a job. There are jobs out there. There's help wanted signs everywhere, and you wouldn't take that job either. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
And hey, look, maybe the silver lining is minimum wage or no minimum wage. If the coffee shop guy can't find somebody to work at $9 an hour, they'll have to offer 10, 11, 12. And so as the economy heats up, wages will go up a little bit. But when wages go up, so does the price of a cup of coffee. And then the question becomes, will wages keep pace with prices? And you know, one reason why we might see the Federal Reserve begin to inch up the discount rate is because of this lingering fear that the economy could become inflationary.
Yeah.
When you have full employment and try to expand the economy, then there's pressure on the cost of everything.
Yeah. Alrighty. Got everything? Alrighty. Thank you, sir.
All right?